that means you want to put your hand down. So we're going to start with everyone's hand down, and so you should see a hand with a green arrow if you're online with the webinar function. And Dr. Rock?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. We're delighted that you've joined us today. And as Laura reviewed the hand-raising function, we are ready to get started. So you've had an opportunity to look over the technology options, considerations, and troubleshooting guidelines that were sent to you last week. And we also asked that you review the technology components, PowerPoint and module in the eCoaching online module. So we've asked you to sort of review in preparation for today's interactive discussion. And we have added, we sent this morning and we've added them to the handouts in this webinar actually, some troubleshooting guidelines and some getting started and connecting online guidelines. Now, one way, an important way to think about this content as we move back and forth between the modules, the PowerPoints, the tutorial PowerPoints that you've received intermittently on the eCoaching continuum, and the technology options, considerations, and troubleshooting guidelines, as well as the new guidelines that we're providing in PDF documents for troubleshooting and getting started, is that this content is not linear. So you're not mastering one PowerPoint or one interactive discussion and then moving on to the next, but we're moving back and forth between them. And as you embark in your e-coaching with teachers around the math and literacy foundations and the transfer of that into classroom practice, you should be accessing the modules, the PowerPoints, and our discussion questions to remain in the growth mindset as a coach. So that's particularly important that you archive this information electronically so that you can access it frequently. Does that make sense? The knowledge building is not stationary and linear. It's dynamic and interactive and ongoing. So if that makes sense to you, if you would give us a raised hand.
Some hands raised.
Right. And Laura, if we could unmute folks so they can tell us who's with us today, and that might help with our interactive discussion as well, so we know who's online with us today.
Okay,
so
would you like me to
give a brief hello, name, and where you are?
Okay, and we're going to go alphabetically down the list by first name, so I will say your name and then unmute you. And we've got Anne. Hi, Anne.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Anne. Where are you?
I am in Clayton, North Carolina.
Welcome. Glad to have you today.
All right, and next we have Anna.
All right, I'm Anna Jarrett in Duplin County.
Hi, Anna, and Duplin's been a partner for a long time. Welcome.
And Beth Gilchrist.
Hi, I'm Beth Gilchrist, and I'm the literacy consultant for the Southeast region, but I'm currently residing in Lillington in Harnett County.
And Harnett's been a long-time partner as well. Hi, Beth.
We have Bridget Bilbrow.
Hi, I'm Bridget Bilbrow. I'm the assistant consultant for the Northeast region, and I'm from
All right, that was Bridget, and she's our literacy consultant for the Northeast. Her microphone's a little low. It's hard to hear her, but
right.
She is in our Northeast and a literacy consultant there.
Thanks, Bridget.
Next, Carla Melton.
Hey, I'm Carla Melton. I'm in the beautiful mountains, experiencing a gorgeous fall day in Haywood County. And I'm the
Hi, Carla, and Haywood's been with us for a while too. Thanks.
Next we have Carol Gillespie.
Hi, this is Carol Gillespie. I am in Fayetteville with Cumberland County Schools.
Hi, Carol. Welcome.
Thank
you. And next we have Carol Moffitt.
Hey guys, it's Carol Moffitt. I'm in Lillington in Harnett County, North Carolina.
Hi, Carol. You've been one of our veterans with us for a long time. Glad to have you this morning.
Thank you.
And next we have Crystal Douglas.
Yes, this is Crystal Douglas, and I'm in Iredell, Statesville.
Hi, Crystal.
Next we have Cindy Gilmore. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy Gilmore. I'm in Hickory, North Carolina, Newton Conover City Schools.
Hi, Cindy.
And Ginger Starling.
Hi, this is Ginger Starling from Johnston County, and we're glad to be here. Ann Kazakrita just texted me, though, from Clayton, and she said she wants a do-over. She wasn't quite prepared to speak through this webinar.
Say again. What name?
Ann Kazakrita. She was joking. She was joking.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, okay, I can bring it back to Ann.
Thanks, Ginger. Glad to have you. Glad that you're excited to be here.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to be so quick with the mute button to make sure that everybody gets all their information out. I'm sorry about that for the earlier folks. So next we have Heather Hyman. Heather? Okay, Heather, are you there? All right, we will mute Heather again, and we'll move to Jan Green. Hi, Jan.
It's Jane, so it's Jane Green, and I'm in Granville County.
Hello.
Hi, Jane. Where did you say, which county? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm in Granville County.
Granville County. Thank you, Jane.
All right, we got Megan. Hi, Megan.
Hey, Megan Reeves. I'm in Greensboro with Guilford County Schools.
Hi, Megan. You're in our neck of the woods. Well, my neck of the woods.
Next we have Melanie Sharp. Melanie.
Hi there. I'm Melanie Sharp, and I'm the literacy consultant for the Northwest District.
All right, and then Paula. Dr. Crawford. I think you're on mute, so we can't. You're muted on your end of things, so I can't get you on the line. So I will come back to you if you're able to unmute. We're going to move to, we're going to go to Rachel. Rachel.
Hi, this is Rachel Varielli. I'm from Gaston County.
Hi, Rachel. Glad to have you.
All right, I'm coming back to Dr. Crawford. Are you there? For some reason, the microphone is remaining mute on Dr. Crawford's end. So we'll move to Richard Stover. And he, too, is muted on his side. So we can't hear from him. And next we have Rick Powers.
Hey, I'm Rick Powers. I'm a statewide EC consultant and working with adolescent literacy in the PIPD section. And I'm in Ashe County.
Hi, Rick. Glad to have you.
All right. And we're going to go back to Richard. I believe he might have been able to unmute. Richard, are you there? Nope, Rachel here's, where did he go? He disappeared. So we'll move on to Yana.
Hey, I'm Yana Acuff from Cleveland County.
Hi, Yana. You've been with us for a long time, too. Glad to see you. Glad you're on with us.
All right. And I believe we've heard from everyone we're able to hear.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. That just giving that shout out lets us know who's with us and helps us with the interactive discussion. So moving forward, again, we're certainly glad to have you with us today. We have 3 things during our time together to accomplish, so you should be seeing the advanced organizer there. If you can see that on your screen, if you'll give us a raised hand to let us know that we're with you and you're with us. We are going to review very briefly some of our previous content from the modules and the e-coaching continuum, as well as the technology options, considerations, and troubleshooting guidelines. We have some interactive discussion questions. Looking forward to hearing from you, and then a summary, a quick review and wrap up, as well as where we're headed with our future directions. Again, we appreciate you joining us over the lunchtime. So you saw this cartoon. Hopefully that gave you a little chuckle in your PowerPoint that was sent last week. So I'm back from training. I got a big binder. The training's already forgotten. But it's a living monument to temporary knowledge. So that's the way that we've approached professional development in the past, and I'm sure if you haven't burnt those binders, you still have some of them on your bookshelves. What we know is that 0.0 effect size doesn't transfer very well compared to a 1.42 when we add coaching. And we also know that the immediacy of that coaching and feedback is more powerful when it is delivered immediately as defined within 24 hours. But certainly within the context of e-coaching, when it can be delivered while the teacher is teaching, we get even greater transfer of effect. So if you got a chuckle out of that cartoon, if you would give us a raised hand that you enjoyed some of that humor, and that's our non-example for the day.
I'm seeing some hands raised.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
And so the modules, again, are there for you to log into at www.inearcoachingalloneword.com for you to log back in and out of intermittently, and to be able to refresh your knowledge and to be able to share with others, administrators, others who are involved in the coaching that you are getting underway with the LEAs. So that's a good continuing resource, and one that we want to continue to make good use of. And then our last session together, we focused on the technology-enabled continuum and really how we put the pieces of the puzzle together. And again, I just want to review quickly why that's important. Typically what we've done is we do the math or literacy foundations. We do the study fairly well, either through coursework or through professional development that's delivered on site or online through a webinar, where we really blast the content and hone in on the content of whatever it is that we're interested in improving, whether that's our math instruction, or our literacy instruction, or positive behavior interventions and supports. We're really pretty good at that. And then the peer observation, being able to see what that looks like, whatever it is that we're studying, math and reading foundations, we're getting a little better at. But there are some videos online that we've mentioned, and some subscriptions that you can subscribe to, or you can watch another teacher in your district or in your building. But that's been a little more challenging for us to do, especially examples of best practice. And then one-on-one coaching, we've also done primarily elbow coaching through lots of different models, literacy coaching models, cognitive coaching, reflective coaching, artful coaching, instructional coaching. There are a lot of different coaching, elbow coaching on-site models out there. And then peer coaching or group coaching, which we've typically done through instructional grand rounds or critical friends. The problem is that the dots haven't been connected, so we don't do them in a way that supports content holistically. And so when we study and we don't coach, the problem is that it doesn't transfer, as we've seen. When we coach and we don't study or see what it looks like, we create dependency on the coach. And when we don't have the peer coaching or the group coaching element added, it's not sustainable over time. So we really need the 4 components working together in a supportive way for math and literacy foundations. So as a coach, it's important for you to be thinking about how you will weave in these 4 components with the teachers with whom you're working, and really creating a professional learning community based on these 4 components, ensuring that each teacher has the opportunity to study through math or reading foundations, to see what it looks like by observing others or watching video clips, to be coached by you, and then to coach one another in small groups, again using a protocol so that it doesn't just become a gripe session or a point of pride session. We want more systematic problem solving and sharing of successes in a more focused manner. Is this continuum starting to make sense for you as a coach, and thinking about connecting these dots as you're working with teachers and helping them to connect these dots for their own professional development?
Carla Melton has a hand up, and a couple other, Carol Gillespie, Carol Moffitt, and a few others are popping up.
Great. So really thinking about, within the context of your coaching in math and literacy foundations, how you will weave these 4 components together through a professional learning community and help teachers understand that they need to be doing these 4 things. They need to be studying math and literacy foundations. They need to be watching one another, watching models online, video clips, Skyping into another district. You might connect them to the Northwest region with the Northeast region to be able to watch a lesson. And again, these can be very brief snippets of time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It does not need to be an hour and a half, 2 hours in length. So using small increments of time more effectively. And then helping them set up some peer coaching or group coaching to continue to explore their problems of practice in a systematic way, that the problems that they're having with math and reading foundations as they attempt to transfer it, what are kids responding to, what are they not responding to, giving one another feedback and sharing successes. So in today's session, we're moving on to the technology options, and we'll keep coming back to the continuum, and we're going to focus our technology options just on the one-on-one coaching. We could expand the scope to think about what technology supports the study of math and literacy foundations, what modules could be developed, what podcasts, what Twitter feeds where they're actually talking about and interacting with the content of math and reading foundations. So you could actually identify technology for each one of these components. Have I explained that well? We're not going to do that. We are going to focus just on the technology for the one-on-one in-ear coaching. If you're with me on that, if you would give us a raised hand.
All right, and I'm seeing hands popping up.
Great. Thank you. So what you saw was a PowerPoint, or what you received was a PowerPoint wherein we explained the technology options for the teacher as well as for the e-coach. So when the e-coach, when we think about what technology does the e-coach need, I gave you some key words on one of those slides. The e-coach needs to connect, see, hear, coach, and record. Now the recording is an option that allows you and the teacher to go back and reflect and review on those coaching sessions, in-ear coaching sessions when needed. There are approaches wherein you can annotate those videos and send them for reflection. That's incredibly time and labor intensive. And we don't have any evidence yet that that's a better approach than doing the in-ear coaching and then going back and reviewing as needed. If there's a particular problem or a particular success that you want to showcase or have the teacher focus on. But the annotated video is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about recording so that you can go back and share snippets, again, smaller increments later rather than annotating an entire video file. And on the teacher's end, they need to be able to connect, hear, see, and talk. So those are the keywords to help us understand the technology, because part of the role of an e-coach that's different from an elbow coach is that you have to be able to work with IT in the district or in the building to solve problems when they erupt, and you have to sort of understand the basics so that you understand how it works, and that can also help with troubleshooting. So in your PowerPoint, you also saw three boxes or columns in the tutorial. And one was for the stationary components, one were the mobile components, listed the mobile components, and then one listed the integrated systems. So if you remember that or you have that PowerPoint in front of you, if you would give us a raised hand. And the middle box was highlighted in yellow with the mobile components emphasized.
Hands are going up.
Great. So the reason that was highlighted is because that's what DPI has chosen to use based on our pilot work with some of the districts that participated in the earlier work that we've done through the Coaching Collaborative. So people really seem to like the swivel. It is a robotics platform, so it's in the right-hand portion of the screen that you're seeing now. You'll see the swivel. It's white with a black top, and it says swivel on it. Has anyone used the swivel? Can you give us a raised hand?
And I see one hand up. I'm wondering if maybe folks didn't catch the beginning when we were clarifying around the hand. When it's green, that means your hand is down. It's counterintuitive. When you want to raise it, that green is indicating go, put my hand up. And when you want to put your hand down, you click it, and the red hand, and it'll put your hand back down, and you'll see the green arrow again to raise it again. So just a little addition to that clarification. So I'm not seeing hands raised on that last question.
So no one's had an opportunity to use the swivel yet? Yana, I know Cleveland County, I think, was one of the early adopters of the swivel.
Right, Cleveland and Haywood County both, to my knowledge, have had that, and we've used it in Haywood.
Any comments about the swivel? If you haven't used it, I would suggest going online. I gave you the URL in the PowerPoint that was sent last week for Swivel, and you can sign up by entering your email address and some other information to participate in a demo of the Swivel, and that will give you an idea of what it can do. But essentially, the teacher wears a lanyard, either a neck lanyard or a wrist lanyard, and inserts their tablet or their smartphone, and it is compatible with Android and iPhones. And you use a marker system for different locations in the classroom, and the swivel will track the teacher. So especially, this is especially important in younger students' classrooms wherein they're moving a lot or there's a lot of station teaching or stations. whereby kids are moving a lot or rotating, and the teacher's rotating amongst those centers. The swivel allows, because it's a robotic platform, it moves, and so it allows the camera to track the teacher and the students. Laura, Dr. Crawford said that she inserted a comment. I cannot see it.
I have that here, so I'm going to share a few. There are some comments that have come in. So we have, from what Dr. Crawford is mentioning, the section is in process of obtaining the technology components for our coaching practices as regional coaches and consultants for that, to support the coaching across the state. So that's in process right now. And Carla has mentioned that she's used the swivel and loves it. Carol Moffitt also has indicated she's used it twice, and she says she's tried to raise her hand. So let me see. Carol, there it is. I see it. Would you like to share? I'm going to unmute you now. Carol?
Hey, guys. Yeah, we used the swivel a little at the beginning, and so one of the things that I really liked compared to what we were doing, which was just using FaceTime with our computers, is that you could really hear what the students said better because of that lanyard and that mic around the teacher's neck. So that's the piece that I really liked. You could really hear when the teacher was, when she walked really close to a student and maybe she whispered something or she was doing small group instruction, and you could really hear the students' responses better with that swivel. The thing that I had a little more trouble with that was when the teacher was moving, then you couldn't always see the students if she walked away from that student, especially like with us, we were trying to do some recording and capturing some stuff to sit down with our teachers later. And so that piece, that made that a little hard, but depending on what you use. But that following that teacher is great if you're monitoring something that the teacher is doing, but if you're looking at students as well, then that made it a little more difficult.
Right. And thank you, Carol, for sharing that. There are always trade-offs with the technology, which is one of our next discussions, which is around what are the considerations. So if you use a desk or a laptop computer to connect and you attach an external webcam that has the wide-angle lens capability, then you can see the entire classroom, as Carol's describing, and sometimes that's really important. For example, if you're working with a teacher on with-itness, being able to provide that small group instruction in math or literacy foundations while they are also monitoring what's happening at other centers or independent seat work with students, then that wider angle lens capability is important. So the swivel is just one technology tool that allows you to have greater mobility and to track the teacher. But as Carol indicated, you can also use the iPad or the iPhone sans the swivel if you choose to do so, or you can use a lap or a desktop computer. So as Dr. Crawford indicated, DPI is in the process of ordering the swivels, and then we'll have a systematic procedure for distributing them for your use as coaches. But there are other ways that you can work around the swivel if it's not meeting your needs. Does that make sense? If you would give us a raised hand. But you can go online. I encourage you to do so and do the demo. The URL is in the PowerPoint, and you have to sign up for it.
We have a few hands that have gone up. We also have a couple of comments that have been made too. Carla Melton indicated with Haywood and their use with the swivel, they're also using that during coaching around behavior. And once other schools within their district saw the swivel use, they purchased for across district.
Right, and the swivel will record, and you can save that as well. It depends how much cloud storage is purchased with it. But the teacher can also record using the swivel on his or her end. And yes, for behavior, for academics, it is a valuable tool.
And Yana with Cleveland County indicated that they've had great success with the use of the swivel along with the Bluetooth component.
Great, thanks, Yana. Yes, I've used the swivel with Cleveland County, and so it is on the teacher's end. So when we think about the technology, we need to think about what's on your end as the coaches, and then what's on the teacher's end. and what they're using, and helping them to work through the technology and what they need to know as well. So I provided some of the important URLs in the PowerPoint. In terms of the interactive video conferencing platform, we're using GoToMeeting today. So you have to connect somehow online with the teacher, and most districts will have their preferred platform. So some districts like Google Hangouts, others will allow Skype, others will use Zoom. There are a variety. Some are free and some are paid subscriptions. So it's really important for you as the coach to work with the building and the district to see what their firewalls will allow through and what they prefer to use. Does that make sense? If you'll give us a raised hand about the video conferencing, and again, that allows you to connect online. You can use FaceTime as well, but you have to be careful about using personal minutes for both you and the teacher. So you want to avoid that to the greatest extent possible.
We had some hands raised in response to that question that they do understand what you described.
Any comments there?
No new comments.
People often ask which platform seems to be the most dependable. I've had the most experience with Skype, having done over 800 of these sessions. Online, I've also used Google Hangouts. I've also used Zoom. It seems to me that whenever there are problems with Skype, Google Hangouts is working extremely well. And then the opposite is true. When Google Hangouts is having trouble, Skype works extremely well. So I don't know if that's a competitive thing they have going on, sort of friendly rivalry, but no system is problem-free. And Skype has improved tremendously since I started using it over 10 years ago, and it will ask you when you disconnect the call to give them feedback, to rate the call's audio and video quality as well as connectivity. And so if you use Skype, I highly encourage you to do that. I have read in various tech news that Google Hangouts is going to cease at the end of this year. Whether or not that's true and whether or not that will come to fruition, I do not know. But again, just working with districts and buildings to and their tech people to figure out which one they prefer to be used. So otherwise, you can use a desktop, laptop, computer. You see the Bluetooth there, and the recording, if you're using Skype or requires an app. And so I've given you both the Pamela, which is the PC version, as well as the Call Recorder, which is for Mac. There is a cost associated with those, so you would want to work with DPI to cover that. It's very minimal. I think it's $30 for unlimited lifetime recording. Don't quote me on that, but if I recall correctly, it's something in that ballpark. And Pamela has different options, business, premier, different levels that you can choose from for the PC version. And again, that allows you to record the session. On the teacher's end, they can record through Swivel. The recording through Google Hangouts happens automatically. It archives it to YouTube, and again, you just need to be sure that it's a secure and private channel so that the videos are not made available to the public. Zoom also has a recording feature that's included in the platform. Pretty basic. Carol?
Okay. Carol's hand is up. I'm going to unmute Carol Moffitt. Hey, Carol.
Hey, guys. That was actually one of those phantom things, but I really liked what Marcy had to say about being able to video that with that swivel. That would make that a lot better and really be able to take advantage of the great audio with that swivel.
Okay. And just be sure to remember when the hand is up, when you click it again, it should go green when your hand is down. There we go. Hands down. And we've got everybody's hand is down, just so we're all on the same page there.
Great. You can also use a screen capture option as a coach. Camtasia is one that can be downloaded, and again, there are some free versions of older versions of Camtasia, as well as some newer versions that do have a cost associated with them. I've used Call Recorder for the past 10 years and love it. I started on PC using Pamela and had a lot of problems. You have to know something about codecs. Some technical knowledge is required, but they've since improved that. When I switched to a Mac platform, I moved to Call Recorder, and it is problem-free. It captures everything beautifully, so that's my go-to. But again, it will be based on your preferences, your budget, and other considerations. So is everybody clear on the technology?
I just want to ensure that I heard that correctly. You had the most success with Mac Recorder?
The Call Recorder. I use a Mac. Yes,
okay.
I have
use a Mac with Call Recorder.
Laptop. So for the past 10 years, I've used Call Recorder, and it I've been very pleased with it. Very happy with the quality and the dependability. And again, I think it was $30 for unlimited lifetime recording. And so you see there in your screen on the lower right-hand corner, you see a little Call Recorder box. When you open Skype, that will launch if you've purchased the Call Recorder app. And in doing that, you can set the settings so that it records automatically, or you can press the button each time. I recommend that you select the option, because I have a tendency to forget to click on the button, that it start recording automatically, and that allows you to capture it. And you can also, and this is in the troubleshooting guidelines as well, you can in the settings direct where it will store the video in a secure location, so either an external drive or to a secure cloud-based storage. So that allows you to do that seamlessly within Skype. So again, the importance of, and you'll see this in your troubleshooting guidelines, so please take a look at them. They're the PDFs that are included in this webinar, as well as those that were sent to you. It's the same ones. Please work with IT people up front. Share these guidelines with them and get familiar with them yourself. Practice some of these things. Go in to your Skype settings or your Google Hangout settings. In the examples I've given you what I use. But if you're using something different, then you really need to work with your tech people, because there are so many different versions, so many different options available, and they all vary slightly. But if you understand how they're working, it's a little easier to troubleshoot them and to get them working properly. Does that make sense? Raised hand if you're with us.
I'm seeing hands pop up.
Yeah, and you're going to be working with so many different schools. I just can't tell you. Sometimes the geographic location as to whether they have 3G, 4G, their Wi-Fi capability, the construction of their schools, the cinder block walls tend to cause problems. There are just so many different factors that are unique to each school building. Sometimes it's a wing in a school building that has problems that other classrooms in the same building don't have, just because of where that wing's located. So again, just really clear, open communication with IT people and keeping a log of issues that erupt, just jotting down the problems or typing them, whatever's fastest and easiest for you, will help to unveil the patterns. For instance, I was coaching with a school, and it was every Wednesday morning. We never figured out why Wednesday morning was a problem, but we just avoided Wednesday mornings. We just worked around it, because even with IT, we could not figure out. We saw that traffic was really high and that was impacting bandwidth, but we had no idea why. So sometimes it's just a workaround, but without that log, it would have been more difficult to see those patterns. Does that make sense?
Great for troubleshooting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the handouts and the guidelines that Marcy's referring to has been emailed to you, and it's also located in your webinar interaction options. So you should see in the area on the right handouts tab, and they are there for you to download and access from this webinar.
Thank you, Laura. And so again, the goal is not to memorize this content, it is to use it as an ongoing resource and to refer back to it repeatedly and to share these troubleshooting guidelines and the getting started and connecting online guidelines with the tech people in the schools. And you might want to add to them as you experiment and practice. I practiced when I started this 10 years ago. I would practice with my son. I would practice with my husband. I would check the settings and just connect with colleagues, just for 5 or 10 minutes. So again, you don't have to do it for an hour or 2 hours, but you do want to just build your knowledge base by looking over the content and then practice it through the hands-on, so that you can then talk a teacher through it or use the instant messaging feature in Google Hangouts or Skype or Zoom to walk them through what they need to check. So getting familiar with the system preferences in Skype or in Google Hangouts so that you can, again, coach them through it in the moment. And it usually only takes a minute, so you're not squandering instructional time to get it going. And we'll talk about the main areas here in a minute where the problems, the hot spots occur. So moving on, if we're clear on are we clear on the technology components? If you'll give us a raised hand.
And hands are popping up.
Great. So as you think about our interactive discussion questions, what does the technology really allow e-coaches to do and teachers to do? And we talked about using those keywords. So you can either type it into the chat box or raise a hand, but let us know, why do we bother with putting these tech components together?
I have Beth has her hand up. Hi, Beth.
I don't have it up. That was a ghost hand. Sorry.
Okay, just so everyone knows, I do have the function to put hands down. So you may have raised your hand, and after those questions that Marcy asks for folks to raise their hand in response to, I understand, I've been putting everyone's hand down.
Ah,
So
that's what
you'll
happened.
see that.
I put it down too.
Okay, okay.
Put my hand down for me, Laura.
Will do, Beth. Thank you. So Rachel has indicated in the questions a statement that says real-time feedback in response to your question, Marcy. And Carol has indicated it allows coach with coach and teacher in different locations.
Great, yes, so it does allow for that immediate feedback in an unobtrusive way. So when we talk about psychology and the Hawthorne effect, if you remember from your psychology classes as an undergraduate, that's the being observed, the observer effect. And when an elbow coach is in the room, the students and the teacher become disempowered because they see the coach as being the expert rather than the teacher. So the technology allows you to be there as a co-teacher, really, that empowers the teacher, because the kids still view the teacher as the one who's in charge of instruction. So that's really important in terms of building their knowledge and skill and transfer of reading and math foundations in a way that is unobtrusive. It also allows you to provide support to a lot more teachers across a larger geographic area using smaller increments of time. And again, that technology using those keywords allows the teacher and the e-coach to connect, to hear one another, to see one another, to provide feedback, and to record. As we think about the primary considerations for choosing technology, what components we want to use with whom, I provided sort of the big 7. What were some of those? And you just saw some of them, or we talked about some of them as we reviewed some of the technology components. If you'll raise a hand or type in the chat box.
And I'm not seeing anyone's hand go up. And there's not activity in the questions box.
So let me lend a lifeline here. So DPI is providing, is ordering the swivels. They're in the process of doing that they will provide through a systematic process, distribution process, in the upcoming weeks and months to each of you. The swivel technology, the Bluetooth technology, so you won't have to order that. That will be provided, again, through a systematic distribution process. And some cleansing wipes, because when you're sharing the Bluetooth, you'll want to be sure that hygienically it's clean. And so they will be providing that, as well as storage for the videos, secure storage, so that you can record them and go back and look at the sections, as Carol indicated, that you might want to share with a group during group coaching once you have permission to do that. So DPI will provide that so that you're not overwhelmed. But again, as Carol Moffitt indicated, there may be instances where you don't want to use the swivel. And so some of the things that were in that previous PowerPoint that we think about are, what's the budget? Well, fortunately, DPI is taking care of the budget for you. But if the school building or the district with whom you're working wants to explore some of this technology, then you can provide them with these considerations and say, hey, you'll want to think about the budget, you'll want to think about how available. Usually the swivels are sent out immediately, for instance, whereas other technology can take weeks or months before it ships. You'll want to think about what the tech support in the district or the LEA has, and how they can network with other LEAs or schools if they don't have what's needed. How compatible it is with your goals. So like Carol Moffitt mentioned, she wanted to focus more on what the students were doing, and so that was a trade-off with the swivel. You should be able to reverse that camera view, though, in swivel. So be sure to check that, too, just like you can on your iPhone or your iPad. And then the dependability, how dependable the technology is, how mobile it is, or versus stationary. When I've worked with teachers using the webcams with their lap or desktops computers, they've gotten very creative and mounted it sort of at the ceiling at an angle so you could really get that bird's eye view of the entire classroom, because that was what was important to them. So asking them is really important, as well as familiarity. Many people have used Bluetooth, so they're familiar with it, or they use a tablet or an iPhone or a laptop, so you're building on their prior knowledge. So hold on to these 7 considerations. Again, they're in the PowerPoint that you got last week, and share them with the districts or the schools as they think about what technology they want to purchase. Again, DPI will be purchasing what you will use. Thumbs up if you're with us on that. Does that ease some anxiety?
Let's see a couple hands go up.
So as you look over the handouts that you got either as email, or you can download them right now, as Laura indicated. And Laura, do you want to just review quickly where they can download those if they haven't already?
Sure. So they're in your email, but they're also downloadable here from the webinar on your functions for interaction. You should have a tab for questions, and in that area you'll see a handouts tab, and you'll see there 3 options. The PowerPoint that is being viewed, you don't necessarily have to download, but it's there for you, and the 2 handouts is what Dr. Rock has been referring to as those guidelines, e-coaching guidelines. So those are ones you want to definitely download.
So those are PDFs, and so if you got them through your email or you're downloading them now, you'll want to be looking at them as we talk about these steps and ask for your participation and involvement. So as you look over some of those bold headings in the getting started and connecting online. And again, I encourage you to share this with the teachers with whom you're working so that they can see what's important and just highlight what they need to do, what's relevant, most important for them. But what are some of the steps as you look at these bold headings that you need to think about as an e-coach? If you'll type into the chat box or raise your hand. Give some wait time as you download and look at those guidelines. It's the e-coaching guidelines, getting started and connecting online.
So Crystal has indicated in the questions box a statement here that she says providing the appropriate materials, collaborating with IT staff at the school.
That's a great start. So as DPI gets ready to distribute those materials to you, and that you will be sharing with the teachers as well, and immediately connecting with the IT folks within the buildings and within the districts with whom you're working to build those relationships. And then what's after that? What are some of the nuts and bolts?
A couple more comments have populated. So Carol, kind of echoes what Crystal is saying with checking with those tech people first. Also indicated it's important so that teachers and students' instructional time is not interrupted and wasted.
Right, and that's highlighted and repeated in those guidelines, in both sets of guidelines, is really not squandering instructional time, but using being very mindful of that as you go through the troubleshooting and the getting started and connecting. If it can't be done quickly and easily, then reschedule those sessions so that we don't interrupt instructional time. Very, very important.
Carla makes a great point. In her experience with e-coaching, she sets up her equipment the day before, checking for all the connections, ensuring those elements are there, and also works with the teacher in that process to ease their minds and anxieties around what might happen during the e-coaching session. So touches base prior to those sessions with the teachers just to ensure all those bases are covered.
Yes, thank you, Carla. And you'll see in the e-coaching guidelines, getting started and connecting online, that the first bold heading is securing equipment. And then it moves to downloading the video conferencing platform, charging and pairing your Bluetooth, connecting with your computer or mobile device, ensuring the camera or the webcam on the mobile device is working, setting up the swivel, securing the video call recorder, setting up the external hard drive or cloud storage, and then practice connecting online in real time. And again, that only takes a few minutes during non-instructional time. So these guidelines are step-by-step what you need to do as well as what the teacher needs to do. And working with IT folks and supporting one another and using those bold headings as the steps that you need to take. Does that make sense? If you'll give us a raised hand.
And hands are popping up. Carla also indicated that during that time they also set the goal for the session.
Right. Carla, that's great, and you're getting way ahead of us. We're actually going to talk about that during our next session around feedback. So now you're getting into the content of the coaching, which extends beyond our focus today on technology. But you saw some of that in the modules around the coaching basics. But goal setting, monitoring, and evaluation are an extremely important part of e-coaching. And so we will get to the nitty-gritty of that. but that should it's a good time to review when you're, as you're suggesting, Carla, and establishing those goals as you're practicing using the technology.
And Carla says she says they've been doing it for a year now, so that's been her process. So she's sorry for moving that conversation in that direction.
Right.
Carol and Rachel also indicated the same thing of setting that equipment up prior to. Rachel indicated a very critical component, ensuring your equipment is charged.
Yes, please. On rare occasion does it happen. I used to think when I started this coaching that they would say all the time, oh, the call dropped, oh, my Bluetooth wasn't charged, oh, this, oh, that. But that rarely happens. But just remembering that if someone does have a problem with remembering to charge the equipment, to do that the day in advance, because if you do it too far in advance, it can run down before the session. So the other important note, and it's in the Getting Started and Connecting Online guidelines, is to make sure that you and/or the teacher has administrative rights on the computer. So if you're trying to download Skype, or you're trying to download Zoom, or you're trying to download Call Recorder, if you don't have administrative rights, or the teacher doesn't have administrative rights on the tablet or the laptop or whatever you're using, then you can't do it. So again, that's why you have to work with IT people to be sure that you have those rights. And they can give them to you, or they can do it. They can do the downloading, whatever the district or the building prefer. Anything else on the Getting Started and Connecting? So you see the securing equipment, downloading the video conferencing platform if necessary, charging and pairing the Bluetooth, ensuring the camera or the webcam on the mobile device or on the computer is in good working order, setting up the swivel, securing the video call recorder, setting up the external hard drive or cloud storage. Again, DPI will provide that, making sure that it's secure, and then practice connecting online in real time. Some very basic sort of guidelines and steps. Do you think these guidelines will be helpful to you as you're getting started or continuing with your work? If you'll give us a raised hand.
I'm seeing hands come up.
Great, thank you. And then also on the PowerPoint that you reviewed, and also looking at the Getting Started, or I'm sorry, pardon me, the General Troubleshooting Guidelines, which is the second PDF document that's listed as a handout that you received via email, and or you can download now. There are 3 to 4. I listed 3 in the PowerPoint, and there's actually 4 in the troubleshooting guidelines because 1 is specific to recording. So what are the most common areas that you would have to troubleshoot, where you might have problems crop up? There's a triangle on the PowerPoint. There's a bulleted list, e-coaching hotspots on the guidelines, the troubleshooting guidelines. What are those hotspots?
So we have Bridget indicating not seeing a video, and Carol, audio issues.
Right. So there are 3 to 4. When you include the e-coach, there's 4. Just the teachers, and there's 3. But the internet connectivity can be problematic. The audio, where you can't hear. The internet, you can't connect. And the video, you can't see. And the recording, you can't record. So those are the areas that you have to troubleshoot. And again, work with IT folks if it's a chronic, ongoing problem. So as you look at those guidelines, what are some of the ways that we can work around or support or remedy those problems? So if you're not hearing, what do we need to do? And so again, if you look at those troubleshooting tips, they're organized by the problem areas. So online connectivity issues, audio issues, video issues, and recording issues, and then some overall troubleshooting tips. So if you look at those bold headings, you'll see and some bullets under each. What are some of the things that we can do to help?
So we have some comments in the question box. It says check Bluetooth connection, internet connectivity. Be sure Bluetooth is paired. Check the status of the internet provider.
Right. Sometimes the internet provider is out, and you simply need to reschedule. There's really nothing that you can do about that. If you're coaching from home and you're using North State or Time Warner, sometimes that goes down. Sometimes a district's internet connection goes down for various reasons. And so it may be a temporary issue, it may be the power's out, it may be a variety of things. You also mentioned checking the Bluetooth connection, and that is absolutely a top one to check. So, and you have to check it in a couple places, so you can't just check it in one. What are some of the places where it needs to be checked? As well as your audio settings. So where can you find audio settings?
Rachel's indicated the earpiece.
So you have to check the earpiece itself, absolutely. And sometimes it goes off, or they've pressed the volume to turn it on instead of the on-off button. So you have to check the Bluetooth itself. Sometimes it's not charged. Sometimes there are physical obstacles in the way. The teacher's hair, if they have long hair, you have to ask them to put it behind their ear. Sometimes there are too many desks, too many students, and it's just causing interference that day. So checking the Bluetooth, the earpiece in and of itself is important. I had a teacher who washed the Bluetooth. And so it was in their pants pocket, and it went through the washer. And so that had to be replaced. It didn't survive the washing. So sometimes those things happen, but I want you to be clear that you also have to check the settings in whatever video conferencing platform you have, Skype or Google Hangouts or Zoom. They all have settings and in a pull-down menu, and you need to go into those settings to check that the audio and the teacher, whatever you're using, if you're using a headset or you're using your internals, that should be set on those settings. But the teacher has to set his or hers on Bluetooth. So you have to do that in the video conferencing platform, and then you also have to check the settings in the device or the computer. So if they're using a smartphone or an iPad, you also have to go into those settings and check the audio there to make sure that, and if the Bluetooth hasn't been paired properly, it won't show up as an option on their end. And so that tells you right away, if they don't see Bluetooth, if they're saying, you know, I only have internal speakers and mic, or swivel speakers and mic, then it hasn't been paired properly. So that's something that you want to consider and think about. Then they have to go through the repairing process again. If they have the option, they just need to select it. But oftentimes people will forget that they have to check it in both the video conferencing platform and the device or the laptop computer. Does that make sense? Give us a raised hand.
We've got hands popping up.
Great. So are you seeing why it's important to understand what the components do? Because then you know what you need to check. So it helps with the troubleshooting process. And your IT people sometimes don't know either. And so these guidelines will help them. More often than not, they do know. But on occasion, it might prove problematic.
So I have 3 hands that have not gone down after that question. I'm not sure if they have questions or if they've just not put their hand down, and I haven't put hands down in response. So Ginger is still there. I'm going to unmute you, Ginger. No, her hand went down. Okay, we're good. There are no questions, it seems.
Okay. So we know that with audio, just to review quickly, we're going to check the Bluetooth itself, make sure that it's charged, make sure that the connection is clear, the pathway between the teacher and the device that they're using, putting hair behind the ear, moving desks or chairs, reconfiguring that quickly. Again, that's if you're having problems. If there's no problems, then you don't have to worry about that. Making sure the Bluetooth is paired with the device or the computer, and then making sure that the audio settings in the video conferencing and in the device or the computer are set to the correct settings. So all of those are ways to check if the audio isn't working. The audio is probably the most common issue if there's going to be a problem that arises. What about if you're not seeing? What about if the video isn't available? What can you do then, looking over some of these guidelines? Any ideas? Similar to the audio.
We have some comments in the questions box. We have check internal webcam from Melanie. Carla indicates check the platform you are using, Hangout, etc. Crystal says check camera and webcams, and Rachel's indicated check camera and platform.
Right, great. So again, making sure that you're checking those video or camera settings not only in the device or the computer, because that has its own settings, but also in the video conferencing platform. So you have to check in both places. Checking one and not the other will usually not remedy the problem. They have to be aligned or in sync with one another. You can also, as we mentioned, add an external webcam, and if you do that, there are some other things that I've listed that you need to do. And one of the things to think about is that each time you add a component, an external component, then you add the possibility of another issue to resolve. So I'm not suggesting that that's a reason not to do it. It's just another thing to think about when you think about troubleshooting. Overall troubleshooting tips, which are at the bottom, so thank you for sharing those video ways to resolve the potential video problems. If you are, I have done sessions where I could see and I couldn't hear, and I've gone ahead with the session, and I have also done sessions where I could hear and I couldn't see. And the reason is that there's still something valuable to gain through those sessions. So if I can see and I can't hear, I can really focus on collecting data that I can then share with the teacher about proximity, for example, about nonverbal gestures and communication. And so not all is lost just because one isn't working. Obviously, if both aren't working, then all is lost. But if one or the other aren't working, then it may be valuable, depending on what the goals are for that teacher to go ahead with it. If I can hear but I can't see, I can collect data around how the teacher is using questioning, for example. What are the lower or higher order questions that are asked about lesson structure? Is there a beginning, a middle, an end? Are they using real-world connections and fractions to help the students understand why it's important to learn about fractions or decimals, for example? So I want to encourage you to be creative and to still use that time wisely, even if there's a minor glitch to work around or something that seems like a major glitch, when you can still use that time. And you might not be able to provide the immediate feedback, but you can still collect some important performance data and share with the teacher later. Again, smaller increments of time used effectively. So you're not watching for an hour without video or sound. You're watching and observing and collecting some performance-based data for 15 or 20 minutes. Does that make sense? You have a raised hand?
Okay, hands are up.
Great. And again, if you... Dr. Crawford? Yes?
We finally figured out what the unmuting piece was with my computer. Are you all able to hear me okay?
Yes, hear you just fine.
Good, great. Okay. I'm glad everyone's here today, and I just wanted to check in a few seconds. Marcy, I apologize for interrupting, but at this point, Marcy's covered a tremendous amount of information, and she did mention that I'm in the process of acquiring the swivels and some storage for the use of in this coaching process, as well as the earbuds and the wipes. And we will have a process for disseminating that technology to you. But I want to just make sure that you're not thinking that you're going to have an overwhelming number of choices in doing this work in the schools. It really does boil down to some very concrete things that you have to think about, and we don't want people to feel overwhelmed at this time with this. We will work it out as we move forward and are there in the schools, and the folks that have been involved before with this coaching collaborative, such as Jana and Carla and Carol Moffitt, will all be able to share some expertise. And if I've left anyone off that was a part of the coaching collaborative, I apologize, but I'm just making the point that we do have some expertise and some usability testing that has been done over the past several years that we'll be able to tap into. So I'll be quiet now. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Paula.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah. Again, these are options that, as an e-coach, you might be sharing in an advisory or an advising capacity with a building, a principal, a district. So beyond the scope of your immediate work, this is provided to help you continue to build your knowledge and practice base. And again, we aren't expecting you or asking you to master it in this session. We are introducing, this is introductory knowledge and practice that will move us forward. Does that make sense, what Paula has shared and what I've shared? So we want to make it digestible, and that's where focusing on those bold headings can help. And starting to acquire some folders where you put this information and label it so that you can come back to it in a resourceful way as you're engaging in the work. Does that make sense?
And I'm seeing hands pop up.
Great. So to review with what we've focused on today, again, we've narrowed our focus today to really hone in on some of the technology and the options that are available that you will be working with directly as you're doing the one-on-one in-ear coaching that will be provided through DPI, and then additional knowledge and information that will be useful to you in an advising capacity as you're working with the LEAs and the administrators and teachers and teams in those LEAs to help them think about, and the built-in supports through DPI and through Paula and Carla and Yana and others who have developed expertise over the past several years. So they've worked within their districts to figure out what tech options were going to work for them, and that will be available as a support to you. Understanding some of the considerations, again, so that you can help others understand those considerations, and then making good use of the connecting and troubleshooting guidelines so that you can work with IT and support the teacher as well during a session if needed, but work as proactively as possible. In our research, we went from experiencing problems a great deal of the time 10 years ago when this technology was very new. It was around 70% of the time, sometimes 80% of the time. We were ecstatic when we didn't have a problem, let me just say that. Through about 2 or 3 years of practice, when we switched to a Mac platform, we went down to fewer than 30% problems. So experiencing a problem about 30% of the time. And Carla and Yana and Carol, maybe you want to chime in about what you think the percentage of difficulty. But again, no time is lost because you haven't traveled. You easily reschedule. But it's technology, so there are times when it's going to be more problematic than others.
Marcy, did you want to hear from Yana or those that have been engaging in that process?
If they have any sense about how often they've encountered any problems. Like I said, through our research, which was very systematic, using, again, the log, so please keep a log, and we'll be sharing some templates for that, an e-coaching log as well as a tech issues log that can help you troubleshoot those tech issues as they're occurring. But we were able to get it down to less than 30% of the time.
Great. So Yana, Carla, Carol, those that have experience with the e-coaching, if you would, if you'd like to respond to that question, kind of share your experience with any possible interruptions and troubleshooting scenarios that you engaged or encountered, raise a hand and I'll unmute you. Okay, Carla. Hi, Carla. I think you're muted on your end. So you have self-muted. So if you can unmute from your side of things, then you can share out. Okay. I'm not able to get her on the line.
Okay. What I can say in working with our North Carolina Coaching Collaborative is that we have had very few instances of problems over the past 4 years with our districts in when we did our coaching of the e-coaches, our e-coaching of the e-coaches sessions, that we had very few problems with the technology. I think one day in Harnett County we did because of storms, but it was a brief interruption.
And Carol Moffitt has her hand up, and she can share her experience. Carol? Carol, you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, Marcy's right. We had a storm when she came to Harnett County, and unfortunately, that building also had trouble. So when we were in our other locations in Harnett County, we didn't have the technology trouble, but in that building, which was a really older building, but they finally have come out, our district has, and found what the problem was. So it was just because of the old building and being able to reach those access points in the building. for the internet access, and so that we had a lot of trouble in that one building. And so, kind of like Marcy said before, depending on the building, the cinder blocks, or whatever the issue might be, our technology people had a time trying to figure that piece out, because it was more of the structure of the building and the access points in the building for the technology. But in our other site, we had rarely had difficulties with the technology because they were in a newer building and it ran really smoothly, and every time we were able to make the connections with them.
Yeah, and again, just keeping a log and working closely with the tech people is, as Carol's describing, is the way to go, because there are just so many different contextual factors that influence it. That's a great example. So our challenge to you as we look at the future directions, which you're seeing now in our last minutes together, is, again, we're working with this content not in a linear manner, but in a manner that is dynamic and intertwined. So we've been going back and forth between the modules and asking you to review certain modules in preparation, and then sending some PowerPoint tutorials in between, and then also providing the troubleshooting guidelines. So our next time together will be focusing on feedback and what to say and when to say it, as well as how to establish a culture or a climate within a building and to work with folks there, because it is different from how we've approached professional development in the past, and how you scaffold feedback so that that you're providing in real time, just as we do with K-12 students, so that teachers are better able to use it. So we're going to ask you to take a look again at feedback at the Module 4 and review that in preparation for our next session. And then we also have a transfer challenge. So we're moving beyond the knowledge now, and we're asking you to find another coach, either regional or DPI consultant, to practice some of the troubleshooting. Now, we understand you don't have the swivels and you don't have the Bluetooth earpieces yet. They are in the process of being ordered, but you can practice connecting through some of the interactive video conferencing platforms. You can practice working with some of the settings, the audio settings, so that you know where they are and how to navigate them. You can practice by going online and doing that swivel demo, and then answering some questions. How did it go? What was easy for you? What was more challenging? Why? But again, really working on the transfer. I'm not asking you to spend hours on it, but a few minutes. And in this way, we're also walking the talk. So using the same model of professional development with you that we're asking you to use with teachers. So building the knowledge base, observing one another, supporting one another through group or peer coaching, and then some actual one-on-one coaching after January. Does that make sense? If you'll give us a thumbs or a raised hand.
My hands are popping up. There's a couple hands there. And our session, our next time together, will be face-to-face in Greensboro.
Right. So we'll be together in Greensboro. Thank you, Laura. And we will start with the transfer challenge. So I'll be asking you to report back about what you practiced with the troubleshooting, and how it went, and what worked well for you and what didn't, and why. So I'm going to be asking you to report back on that transfer challenge.
So that transfer challenge will want to ensure we take an opportunity to do that activity prior to our time together on November 18th. So we'll have that experience ready to reflect on and share.
Right. So between now and November 18th. Again, a few minutes, not hours, extended hours on end, but just taking a few minutes and building your capacity and your network with the other regional coaches, as well as the DPI consultants. So hands up if you're looking forward to our next session together. I know I am.
Yeah, some hands have popped up.
And also, if you would sign off with us by letting us know, just like to hear from about 3 to 5 people, a takeaway from today as we wrap up that will be important for your work as an e-coach. So something you learned today about the technology components or about the troubleshooting or about the considerations that you will use to inform your work.
So you can type in the question box and provide a statement, or if you'd like to share out, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. We have a quiet group this morning, or I'm sorry, this afternoon. We've transitioned into afternoon now.
Right. Paula?
Paula, would you like to share? I'm going to unmute you, Paula. Hey, Paula.
Hey, thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here again, and I want to thank the thoughtful preparation that Dr. Rock has provided for this and all the other sessions to date. Hopefully this grounding in the coaching practices and the research and now the technology has really given you some food for thought in preparation for moving forward with your role with the rollout of the Reading and Math Foundations and following up with those instructors to make sure that we have the fidelity of implementation across the state. So we really appreciate all your work and especially thankful that we have this partnership with Dr. Rock. And thank you, Laura. You've done a great job today. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you. We do have two folks that have entered a statement in the question box with their takeaways. So Rachel has indicated the importance of setting up that relationship with IT from the beginning. And Carol has indicated that she is looking forward to trying out the technology but is a bit nervous about troubleshooting.
That's a great, yes, building those IT relationships is really important. And the troubleshooting, you're in it together. So again, if you make it digestible by thinking about those 3 to 4 hotspots, the audio that can go wrong, the video, internet connectivity, and the recording. And again, all is not lost. There are ways to be creative around it or to reschedule without losing time or money. Yana, does Yana have a raised hand?
She does. Let me unmute you, Yana. Here you go. Hey, Yana. Oh, she has self-muted. Perhaps just got the arrows reversed.
So again, as we wrap up, echoing Paula's kudos and appreciation for everyone, Laura, Deanna, Paula, as well as all the DPI consultants and regional coaches. It's a pleasure and a privilege, and I really commend you for being trailblazers and for making a difference in the way that we do professional development so that we get better outcomes for our teachers and for our students with exceptionality. So thank you.
And thank you again for the content of this webinar and others. As Paula has said, this has been a great learning experience, and we look forward to being together in November 18.
So have a great weekend, and we'll see you in November.